Hi, happy holidays. Welcome to Steve's Random Rambles. It's a new thing I'm doing where I'm just going to talk a little bit. I stole Lula's chair. There's Lula. She seems willing to share it with me, which was nice of her. But I wanted to talk today, first out of the gate, a little talk about the Nikon Z9. Ta-da! Which I received a little less than 48 hours ago. So I received this on Christmas Eve. Ordered that from Picture Line in Salt Lake City, and they overnighted it to me. So I had it Christmas Eve. So I got the Z9 set up Christmas Eve after dinner with the family, and then went out and shot with it a little bit yesterday afternoon and a little bit this morning as well. So I have some initial impressions to share, and then I'm going to have a few other things to ramble about as well. But I'll just get started with the Z9, since that seems to be what people want to hear about. So anyway, my expectations for the Z9, let's talk about that real quick, first of all. So I've been a Nikon shooter for as long as I've started doing photography, so well over a decade. And I picked up a Sony A1 last year when they became available. So I've been shooting with that for almost a year. And it's been wonderful. And I kept some of my Nikon gear as well, but the A1 was such a technological leap forward that I just couldn't ignore that. And so I invested in an A1 and a 400mm 2.8 Sony, a couple other Sony lenses. And honestly, it's been wonderful. The technology in there is awesome, and I've gotten used to the Sony system. It's great. Nothing bad to say about it. Nikon is different than Sony. Sony is different than Nikon. They're both great if you are willing to put the time in to learn how to use them properly. And so I think I have some reasonable insights into that. So this is kind of Nikon's answer to the Sony A1, albeit in a different form factor. So this is a big, chunky, heavy body built like a tank. So much different than Sony's, go super light and small way of thinking. They're taking a little different route here with the Z9, and that's cool. So anyway, right out of the gate, pick it up. It is heavy and chunky. It is a pro body, very well built, and so I'm psyched to have that, especially out in these snowy conditions like we've got going on back there right now. My initial expectations on this camera were I'm trying to keep things, reasonable. Like, this is a massive leap in technology, mirrorless technology for Nikon. Sony kind of blew everybody away with the A1, and this isn't going to blow the Sony A1 away. I don't expect it to blow the Sony A1 away, but I do expect it to perform in the same league as the A1, and Nikon has not had a camera that can do that yet, so this is the first one. So I'm not expecting this to make the Sony A1 obsolete or anything. It absolutely will not do that. But it will give Nikon users a comparable camera. That's my expectation. So I also expect this camera to have some bugs in it and need some kind of ironing out, because clearly Nikon was in a hurry to get this out to us. And I'm sure, even the Sony A1, every new camera that I bought needs firmware updates to fix things, right? And Fuji is really good about adding new features through firmware updates. Nikon has actually done that as well with their Z camera bodies. So I expect it's going to need some firmware updates. There's going to be bugs. They'll probably improve a bunch of things through firmware as well. So that's my expectation. I don't expect this to be perfect, all right? There's no such thing as a perfect camera. So I'm not expecting it to be perfect. And so that should help temper my expectations for what this camera can do. The Sony A1 that everybody loves so much, the Canon R3, the Canon R5, they're all wonderful cameras. None of them is perfect. They all do things better than the others, and they all do things worse than the others. This is going to be no different, okay? So with that said, I'm going to be working on I'm going to have more thoughts as I start using the camera, and a bunch of those will probably come through in these random rambles, little things that I'm doing now. Just started. Today's the first one. And then I'll probably put together a full review after I've had a period of time to actually, really dig in deep and get to know the camera. But just in the last 40 hours or so that I've owned the camera, I have formed some initial thoughts about it. And my initial impression really is that, I shot it side by side next to the A1. I shot this with the 600 f4 side by side with the A1 on the 400 2.8 on some moose in the snow this morning, which is a really tricky situation for autofocus systems with heavy blowing snow. It can really fool autofocus systems. And both cameras performed, I actually think probably this one performed a little bit better in terms of being able to lock on to the moose and not be fluttering around with the snow. But very similar, both of them miss some shots when it's like that. And both of them nail more shots than they miss. But I didn't see anything that was blow my mind either way, that the Sony was way better than Nikon way better. They were very similar. Similarly, kind of a cool thing that I did with this setup, on Christmas Eve, this is the 51.8Z lens, and Lula here was hanging out. Oh, where'd she go? Oh, she moved over here. There she is. I just pointed the camera at her like this. Everything was still in full auto mode, like the auto, what do they call this? Wide area autofocus. So just, you point the camera at something and the camera has to decide what to focus on. And I saw this scene where Lula was kind of hiding behind the cabinets at my parents' house, begging for food from my dad. And just like half of her head was sticking out from behind the cabinets. And, there was a bunch of other cabinets and stuff in the background. I just pointed the camera and pushed the button. The camera found her eye. She was very small in the frame compared to the rest of the frame. The camera found her eye, recognized that it was a dog, found the eye, and nailed tack sharp focus on that eye, which was very encouraging to see right out of the gate. Nikon has subject recognition much improved over the previous Z cameras, so that was awesome to see. I'll show you a few photos that I've taken yesterday evening and this morning. What all did I shoot? Moose in the snow was kind of the big thing. I ran into a coyote out there, a couple of bighorn sheep, some deer, just some random little things that I was testing. The autofocus really was, it did everything right, just kind of like the A1 does. So nothing super tricky other than just the blowing snow was kind of the one thing that would be tricky for an autofocus system. And it performed quite well. So anyway, I think my favorite thing I shot so far was a moose shaking its snow off in 4K, 120 frames per second. So I'll show you that in slow-mo. That was pretty cool. So anyway, so far so good. It's wonderful. I have noticed a couple little things already that could be bugs or just could be oversights on Nikon's part. One thing in particular that the Sony does that I love is the zebras for highlight warning when you're shooting still photos. They light up and sparkle anything that's overexposed in the frame, and that's wonderful. This will do it in video, but I cannot find a way to do that while shooting stills, and it's a kind of a big time bummer because I then have to look at the histogram and look for things to start piling up on that right edge, and it's much more difficult to see those pixels creeping up the right edge there than it is to see the highlight warning like you can get on Sony, I believe Canon, and definitely Fuji. So hopefully Nikon, maybe it's buried in there somewhere and I just can't find it, but so let me know if you know how to do that. Okay, so that'll be all I'm going to say today about the Z9. So far, so good. I'm very excited to have it and put it through some paces in the upcoming months while I'll be in Yellowstone and Africa. So if you're just here for the Z9, take care. See you next time. But anyway, I'll finish my random ramble video today. A couple of things. So what am I doing with the random rambling? Random ramble. I didn't even think that through well enough to know if I should call it the random ramble or the random rambling. Let's call it the random ramble for now. I want to just have a kind of a format to be able to talk about a handful of random things that would be way too short and informal to make a full video all by themselves about. So I'm going to start doing these hopefully weekly. I know I'll never be able to pull that off, but that's going to be my goal, my hope. Okay. Send me questions that I can answer on these random rambles, like ask questions in the YouTube things. Feel free to email them to me, whatever, YouTube comments, Instagram comments, whatever. And I can answer some questions. Speaking of which, I left my gloves in the car. I had sent out an email to my email list earlier this fall about gloves, and I showed a pair of gloves that were made by Vallerret, I think that's how you pronounce it, that have kind of become my favorite photography gloves. And I wore those in my last video, and they have the little fingers that you can flip open and thumbs, so you can operate controls with bare fingers and then flip them back up. And quite a few people emailed me and made comments about what's the deal with those gloves. They're great. They're made by Vallerret, and I will put an affiliate link to them in the description below. I recommend them. They work great. And that's going to be about it. I guess I'll just wrap up with a couple of personal comments here. As I mentioned, Stephanie and my kids are flying in this evening. And so Christmas Day was yesterday. I kind of had it to myself. I hung out with my parents and my two brothers. But now the real Christmas celebration will kind of be tomorrow, since the kids are here. And yeah, we're all doing great. Everybody's healthy and happy. And I want to say thank you also to all my YouTube viewers. So thank you. It's been a great year of YouTubing. I haven't been able to do as many videos as I would have liked. Just life is getting busy and kind of in the way, but I'm going to try and do more. I'm going to try and do better. Okay? So anyway, thank you so much for following me along and your support over the years and certainly over the past year. So anyway, this is it. Random Ramble episode 1. Please leave me comments down below if you have any suggestions on what else to do with these little random short videos where I talk about random things. All right. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Celebrate them and have a great time. I hope you're doing great, and take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.